Well, I was first asked to go to Indonesia in 2001 to help a community of plantation workers on a Belgian-owned oil palm plantation to make a film. I wasn't directing the film. I was helping them make their own film, a kind of community-based production. Of course, it's an amateur film because they were plantation workers, not filmmakers. But to help them make a film documenting their struggle to organize a union in the aftermath of a Western-backed military dictatorship under which unions were illegal. And I was interested in doing this for two reasons. First of all, I was exploring methods of collaboration and performance in nonfiction cinema. I was just starting to become a filmmaker and just beginning my interest in nonfiction. I was trained more in fiction. And I saw this was an exciting opportunity to develop these methods in a new context and a new way. But also, I was interested in the violence that underpins globalization, the violence that underpins our prosperity and consumer capitalism in the Western world, and this feeling that something that our luxury, our beautiful glittering cities are somehow haunted, that we live in a guilty landscape. And I wanted to explore that. So I was interested in going to Indonesia because I understood that that was precisely the purpose of that film. And when I arrived, I found that the Belgian company was making the women workers, as their job, spray a weed killer, a herbicide, with no protective clothing, and the mist would get into their lungs, then their blood, and destroy their livers. And they were dying in their 40s. And that I was 27 years old. The women I was living with were being killed at work. It was a very big story for me, a very big, painful experience and shocking thing. And when they would try and petition the company to use masks and gloves, the company would hire Pancasila Youth, a paramilitary group at the center of the act of killing, to physically attack them. And they were easily intimidated because it turned out their parents and grandparents had been in a union until 1965, had been killed for it, accused of being communist sympathizers and killed, and they were afraid this could happen again. So I understood what was killing my friends and what was keeping vegetable oil cheap, because they were making vegetable oil, and also killing my friends, was not just poison, but also fear. That fear was part of the economy of the production of vegetable oil. And I understood, in fact, that the vegetable oil is only deceptively cheap. It's cheap in terms of money, but it's enormously costly in terms of life. My friends were giving their lives to create palm oil. So afterwards, after they made this film, the globalization tapes, they said, Joshua, why don't you come back and we'll make a film about why we are so afraid, about what happened in 1965, but more what it's like for us to live with the killers all around us and still in power. And I returned in 2003 to begin that work, not having any idea where it would lead. Very quickly after I began that work, the army threatened the survivors not to participate in the film. They found out what we were doing and stopped the production. And the survivors with whom I was living and very close from having helped them make the previous film, they said, don't give up, don't quit, try to film the perpetrators. We think they will tell you what they did. I guess they suspected that because the perpetrators were boastful in their own communities about what they did, and they knew that. I didn't know it. So I approached the perpetrators afraid at first, thinking it could be dangerous, and found to my horror that every single one of them was immediately boastful. I didn't have to convince them to open up. They were immediately open about what they had done in the worst and most shocking way. I had this feeling that I'd wandered into Germany 40 years after the Holocaust, only to find the Nazis still in power. And I knew from this little insight into the economy of vegetable oil that this is not the exception to the rule. This is not some crazy science fiction scenario. This is the rule. This is how the global South is organized. And I knew that I would spend as many years of my life as it would take to address this situation. When the survivors and the human rights community, and particularly Adi, who would later become the main character in The Look of Silence, saw this footage with the perpetrators, this early footage back in 2003, they said, and Adi said most forcefully, keep going, keep filming the perpetrators, because if you make a film out of this, anybody will be forced to acknowledge that there's something still terribly wrong here today, namely impunity, thuggery, corruption, all of which is based on fear, which is the legacy of the genocide and the victory of the perpetrators. So I spent 7 years filming with the perpetrators, and then after that was finished and we made that first film, The Act of Killing, I went back and shot The Look of Silence.